President Donald Trump this week falsely blamed Ukraine for starting the war that has cost tens of thousands of Ukrainian lives, causing outrage and alarm in a country that has spent nearly 3 years fighting back a much larger Russian military. Trump called Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky a dictator without elections and claimed his support among voters was near rock bottom. Zelensky said Wednesday that the disinformation is coming from Russia, and some of what Trump has said does echo Russia's own narrative of the conflict. Here's a look at some of Trump's statements. Ukraine should have never started it. What Trump said: "You've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal." The facts: Russia's army crossed the border on February 24, 2022, in an all-out invasion that Putin sought to justify by falsely saying it was needed to protect Russian-speaking civilians in eastern Ukraine and prevent the country from joining NATO. But Russia's aggression against Ukraine didn't start then. In 2014, Russian President Vladimir Putin saw signs that Ukraine was pulling away from Russia's sphere of influence, seeking alliances with Western European nations. Putin illegally annexed the Crimean Peninsula and started an armed aggression in the eastern Ukrainian region of Donbass that grew into a long-running conflict that left thousands dead. That conflict simmered until 2022, when Putin ordered what he called military exercises along Ukraine's borders. He told the world that the roughly 150,000 soldiers that he had amassed would not be used to invade Ukraine. But in the early hours of February 24, Russia launched widespread airstrikes and soldiers began pouring over the border. Ukraine should hold elections. What Trump said: "We have a situation where we haven't had elections in Ukraine, where we have martial law," Trump said in Mar-a-Lago, adding on Wednesday in a post on social media, "A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast, or he is not going to have a country left." The facts: Zelensky was elected to a 5-year term in 2019, and the next presidential elections had been scheduled for spring 2024. But Ukrainian law prohibits parliamentary or presidential elections during a state of martial law. So Zelensky has remained in office. He has said he believes elections will be held in Ukraine after martial law is lifted. The country would need to amend the law if it decided to hold a vote. There are numerous factors that, according to Ukraine's government, would render it literally impossible to ensure a fair electoral process in the circumstances of a total war. According to the United Nations Refugee Agency, some 6.9 million Ukrainian refugees have been registered worldwide since February 2022. Of those, millions remain outside the country due to the war. It would be nearly impossible for all of those who have been displaced to participate in an election, potentially robbing millions of their right to vote. Furthermore, around 800,000 soldiers are currently serving in the Ukrainian armed forces as they struggle to contain Russian advances. An election would necessitate pulling soldiers off the front lines to vote, weakening Ukraine's military position. Additionally, those fighting would be unable to run for office, a right that is guaranteed to them by Ukrainian law. Many Ukrainians are living in areas under Russian occupation, essentially precluding their participation in any electoral process. And since Russia continues to regularly strike both military and civilian targets across the country, packing millions of citizens into crowded polling places could create additional danger. Zelensky's support at rock bottom? What Trump said: "The leader in Ukraine, I hate to say it, but he's down at 4% approval rating." The facts: Zelensky retains a fairly high level of public trust, about 57%, according to a report released Wednesday by the Kyiv International Institute of Sociology. Speaking in Kyiv on Wednesday, Zelensky said the number given by Trump, for which the president cited no sources, was disinformation that originated in Russia, and that the president unfortunately lives in this disinformation space. Zelensky said he will ask pollsters in the coming weeks to conduct surveys on the public's trust in him and share the results with the Trump administration. Millions of deaths. What Trump said: "When you see what's taken place in Ukraine with millions of people killed, including the soldiers, millions of people killed, a big percentage of their cities knocked down to the ground. I don't know how anybody even lives there." The facts: no estimates by any reputable analysis place deaths near the millions. While exact figures of the number of deaths are unknown, Zelensky said earlier this month that over 46,000 Ukrainian soldiers had been killed since the start of the full-scale war in February 2022. He has also said that tens of thousands of civilians had been killed in occupied areas of Ukraine, but that no exact figures would be available until the war was over. The most recent data from the Russian Defense Ministry, published in January 2023, pointed to just over 6,000 military deaths, although reports from US and UK officials put that number significantly higher.